Good morning. Good morning. This is super exciting for me. Now, I'm the kind of person I like to be in these settings, in person, interacting with people, getting to know people, etc. But in these pandemic times, in this virtual world, this is the way we have to do things. And I'm actually amazed at the ingenuity of the organizers of almost all the conferences I've been at. And one positive effect that the pandemic has had is that typically in Bangalore, most of these gatherings don't start on time. People are late by half an hour, an hour. I was stuck in traffic, etc. But of course, that doesn't happen now with the virtual world. So thank God for that. Thank you so much for coming. Super excited to have everybody be here as a part of the WiTech conference. My name is Sanket, and I am the servant leader here in Intuit India. This conference has been organized by the Tech Women at Intuit community, a community dedicated at advancing women technologists and empowering them to grow their careers. Meg, next slide, please. So, at Intuit, we believe that diversity is a fact, right? But inclusion is a choice. And we are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our stronger together value keeps this front and center in how we power prosperity around the world. That's our mission. That's Intuit's mission, is powering prosperity around the world. Now, we do believe that it's not just about creating equal opportunities, but it's about creating opportunities that are relevant, appropriate, and needed to make this journey as supported and conducive as possible for growth, right? Now, I'll begin with a few examples of people who have been in my life, who have affected me in my outlook in general. So I'd like to start off with, next slide, Mike, please. I'd like to start off with talking a bit about the person on the left here. This person is my daughter, Apeksha. Apeksha graduated from college a few years ago, and upon graduation, she got a Fulbright scholarship and was teaching English in rural parts of Thailand. Now she's here in Bangalore working for a while till she goes to grad school. Now, she gave me one of my first important lessons as a father and as a professional. But Apeksha was probably around 6 or 7 when we were sitting in our house in Portland, Oregon. That's where we lived. And our son was playing and he started crying. He must have fallen down or something. And as is with a lot of dads around the world, I just made a remark. I said, Abhyuday, stop crying like a girl. I didn't even think twice about it. But then Apeksha got up, stood like this, and was like, Papa, how can you say that? What does it mean crying like a girl? Am I any inferior to Abhyuday? And I was like, my goodness. First of all, it was remarkable that my young daughter was talking to me and trying to teach me something. And the other thing was, I've grown up with these kind of expressions. I've never thought twice about them, but my goodness, these are indeed hurtful. Big learning for me, huge learning for me. And since that day, I've actually stopped using that. Throughout my life journey, throughout my professional career, I regularly go to her for what's often referred to as reverse mentorship, just because she's much younger than me. But she's a very smart lady, one of the big influencers in my life. And we talk about most of the things that, my decision making, etc. Most recently, both Apeksha and I have friends in the LGBTQ community. But oftentimes, what happens is in your day-to-day speaking, you ignore or are not aware of the right pronouns to be used. So for example, me, I was having difficulty in the gender non-binary community. And she guided me on how to best respectfully address them. I'm grateful to her for that. And as a result of that, I think I'm a better ally in the LGBTQ community. Now, the other woman I'd like to talk about is the person on the right sitting with me on the couch. That's my mother. Unfortunately, I lost her a few months ago, but she has been one of the biggest influences in my life. Now, hers was not an easy journey. She got married when she was just 16 in a small town in India. And right after that, because her mother-in-law had passed away, she got into the whole role of raising her brothers and sisters-in-law. At just a tender age of 16, she gave up her studies. So not a very well-educated lady. but my goodness, a huge force in my life. I am today what I am because of her. And some examples of the resilience shown by her. My father was a diplomat, and we were stationed in Thailand and France. And she learned the local language, and she learned driving and would be quite active in the community. Absolutely remarkable for somebody who's a housewife and for somebody coming from such a rural background without much education. Um, Now, I mentioned this also because it troubles me greatly when people talk about housewives in a kind of a derogatory manner, and like professional women are here. To me, being a housewife, being a caretaker at home is supremely important, and it's a life decision you take. So my point here is that I think we have to respect all women, no matter whether they're in the professional world or have chosen to be housewives, because it's a very important role that's being undertaken. Furthermore, oftentimes what happens is, there are phases in life that people go through, especially women, where you have to probably give up your job for some time. In India, it often happens because of perhaps becoming a mother, or oftentimes also to take care of your parents or your in-laws. Now, after a gap of a certain amount of time, it's very difficult to come back into the workforce. And so Intuit has introduced a program called Intuit Again, whereby we create a nice, relevant, appropriate soft landing for women to come back into the workforce. And if they so choose, after that period of, say, a 6 to 8 month internship, they would continue to be professionals, or some of them decided, no, this is not for me. I'm very happy where I am. But this is an example of creating appropriate opportunities for women. Next slide, please, Meg. Now, another example that comes to mind, a fairly recent one, is of a colleague of mine. Now, she was relating to us that in a meeting where they were deciding the possible promotion of various candidates they were discussing, there were 20 people in there, and she was the only woman. An intimidating thing to begin with. And in the discussions of various candidates, they were talking about the resumes, the background, etc., what they have done. When a woman candidate came up, they started talking about her personality. She's pushy, she's this, she's that. And my friend was like, my goodness, that's not appropriate. But being the only woman in the room, it is really difficult to be able to express such opinions. It's difficult to express opinions anyway if you're the minority in the room, but especially opinions about somebody who is like you, incredibly difficult. She had the courage to be able to say this, and people, of course, reacted the right way. But I just wanted to bring this up because it's happened to me many times in my career as well, where I've been, say, the new person in a group. And when you enter that particular meeting, you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, okay, when should I say something, right? If I say something, will it be the right thing? If I talk too much, will I be considered a little too pushy, a little too aggressive? If I don't talk enough, will I be considered dumb? What's the right way to assimilate? Now, these thoughts happen all the time, and we have to be aware of it, create situations so that people feel safe, they feel comfortable to be who they are. Environments at the workplace should be conducive to bringing your whole self to work. This is the value we live by, and this is something I'd like to share with everybody. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's where we get a little bit interactive this morning. And I hope that's fine with people. And I hope we'll be able to see perhaps some chat. I guess the responses would be in chat. But these are 3 brands. I'm sure everybody has heard of all of these brands. Now, can somebody tell me what's common across all of these? If you could type in or chat. Meg, is chat the right way for people to respond?
Yes, Sanket.
Wonderful. Yeah. So in Zoom chat, if you could just type in your this thing. And while you're thinking about this, whenever we think of companies now, especially in the beginning management courses, you're taught to think of a corporation almost as a human being. So corporation has the rights, responsibilities of a human, right? That's a fundamental part in understanding business. At the same time, what I would like to propose is everybody should think of themselves as a company as well, like a startup. Now, it's important to do that because you have to start thinking, what can I bring to the table so people will support me? So I'll get funding, right? So that's really important. And to do that, you have to figure out what is your core competency? What is it that is really you? And it's not something that people want you to be, but what is it internally that's your strength? How do I leverage it? And furthermore, taking a look at that, seeing what's the big problem that you can address, that's going to lead to amazing results. And the combination of these things make you an amazing professional, and you have to continue to think about this. Now, this is a process at Intuit we call CDI D4D, which is along the lines of design thinking, but one has to introspect and think about these things. No, let's see what people have said. No answers so far, but I'll just continue. So the commonality between these three companies, next slide, please, Mac. The commonality between these three companies is they still have the startup mindset, despite the fact that they've been around for decades and decades. And fundamentally, what they do is, even when things are going well, they choose to disrupt themselves. They look around the corner, see what is coming up in the near future or distant future, and see what they can do to shape themselves, to prepare themselves for that. Now at Intuit, of course, we've done that time and time again. We began as a company with our software on DOS, and then on Windows, Internet, cloud, and now we're an AI and mobile first company. Disruption that happened when we were going super strong, right? But we decided to do that, take the challenge and do it. Another example I'd like to give is Netflix. Now, I don't know if the question answers are coming up easily, but can somebody tell me what is Netflix's core competency? Let's see if we can get a couple of answers here, guys. Okay, streaming. Anshu Gupta has written streaming. Video streaming again. Anybody else? Recommendations. What did Netflix start as? Awesome. So I think Dikshita wrote an amazing answer, recommendations and personalized recommendations. Absolutely. So, Netflix started off as a company that was renting out DVDs, right? And so people would go in their website, enter what you wanted to see, and then the DVDs would be shipped to you. And once you were done with them, you would return them. There would be a envelope, mailing back envelope, and then the next DVDs would come to you. And along with that, the recommendations for other movies to watch came into play. Now, this is very important for the next thing I'm about to tell you. I think it was 2008 timeframe, Netflix decided, and I think somebody wrote streaming in the beginning, Anshu and Sarah. Around 2008 timeframe, they decided, hey, we want to become a streaming company. Now, they were doing really well, and the stock price was doing amazing, but they made that decision. After announcing that, their stock price tanked, right? But they were looking around the corner. They were looking in the future because internet was becoming ubiquitous. Availability of content was key. And so they made that decision and did really well. But the big determinant of success was their core competency, because what did they invent? A term that I'm sure all of us are used to, binge watching, right? So, not only were you watching different shows as a result of recommendations, but at the same time, you were used to having Netflix do the right thing. So when you were watching something, the next episode came up, etc., or recommendations for other shows to watch, and you were sitting in front of the TV for a very long time. Absolutely amazing. A decision made by them when they were doing really well. They took a hit, but look at where they are at right now. No one thought Netflix would be successful in India, but it's amazing. It's doing really, really well. And now in the process, you have to understand your core competency. Next slide, please, Meg. But while disrupting, please be sure, while you might want to color your world in a different tone based on what you'd like to do, what kind of disruption you'd like to do, but internally know who you are, right? Be true to yourself. Never lose that, because that's what's made you really special. What are your strengths? Leverage those and keep on reinventing the overall brand that you've created. Next slide, please, Matt. Now, another question. What is this slide about? What's this a representation of? Anybody? Okay, music, interesting. Spotify, nice. Headset, music. Okay, yeah, iPod. Awesome. So this is from an Apple ad, right? So Apple, when it came up with iPod, was amazing, right? Now, iPod was not new. MP3 music players had been around for quite some time, but Apple reinvented the entire genre and created a brand for itself. So not only was the interface amazing, which is what Apple is used for, famous for, but they also created the white wire and the headphones. So those days, nowadays, there's white headphones are everywhere from all kinds of companies. But those days, when you were walking around with the white headphones, people knew you were listening to an iPod. Absolutely amazing. So this creation of brand is super important. And I bring this up here in that in the process of creating your brand, understanding who you are, your core competency, and you as an entity, you have to figure out how to establish that brand and keep on nurturing it, right? And it has to be something you're super comfortable with. Okay, so in the process, think about two fundamental things. One is that you have to learn how to network, no matter where you're at. So today you're at this conference. Of course, we're not face to face, but there'll be ways for you to get to know other people. Or any of the place that you are at, introduce yourself, get to know people. It's amazing how important that is, right? People start understanding who you are. The next part, and it's super important, and it's a very cultural thing. It might be, perhaps some gender bias there as well as to the way people respond is, don't be afraid to ask, right? If you want something, if you're curious about something, if you want the next promotion, if you want a particular job, ask for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? People say no, and that's okay, right? One of the big things that we learn to do as entrepreneurs, as professionals, etc., is it's okay to fail, right? At least you tried. So it's very important for everybody to be thinking along those lines. Next slide, please, Mahek. Now, this particular slide is the most important part, right? So we've talked about understanding your core competency, what can you do, what you bring to the table, etc. Creating your brand, how to make sure that the brand is visible, networking, asking for things. But when things are going good, when you're doing really well, take a look back and repeat the entire cycle, right? See where you've had, because all of us are growing. We learn every day. I gave examples of 3 wonderful ladies who are teaching me every day, right? So how have we grown? What else can we do? And again, understand your competencies, understand your core, figure out how to disrupt yourself and do amazing things, right? So with that, the last slide, Mahek, please. What I would like to leave you with are these thoughts, right? And again, at Intuit, we are big believers in repetition never ruins the prayer. So I'm repeating the same mantra many times to you because it is easily understood. It's very difficult to actually execute, right? So please, please, please understand who you are and think disruption. We always talk about innovation in the industry, right? How do you innovate? Well, you have to innovate yourself as well, right? It's important to see what else you can do. What's the next disruption you can bring? So think about that. Even when things are going good, you're kicking ass in your career, it's okay. Think of what else you can do. It doesn't mean changing your job. It just means what else can you bring to the table? What's the next thing, next big thing for you?